Hey everyone, welcome to Mountain Beast Mysteries. In today's video, I have a very interesting encounter from back in the 70s, 1977 to be exact. This happened in Oregon, and essentially what happened was a deputy sheriff was called out to an incident one night out in the wilderness where some college students had a Bigfoot encounter, and it was startling and shocking enough to them that they opened fire on it because one of them had a rifle. So a very exciting Bigfoot encounter, and obviously a scary one if you were one of these students. If you had this happen to you, if you ran into this 8-foot tall creature in the middle of the night and didn't know what you were looking at, I'm sure it would be pretty shocking and quite scary. So let's get into the actual encounter here. I was a deputy sheriff for Marion County from 1970 to 1982. In about 1977, I was dispatched to a reported shooting incident on the Little North Fork Road, east of Salem and northwest of Gates. The incident involved 4 young men who were college geology students, camping near the old mining town of Jawbone Flats, doing some college work. They were at their camp at around 10 o'clock at night when they heard a howling noise coming from the canyon below their campsite. They later heard the sound of a large animal coming up out of the canyon towards the road near their campsite. They had dogs with them that became scared and hid in the tent. One of the men got a rifle out of the tent, and they all went onto the road to try to see what the animal was. When the animal got onto the road, they could not see it clearly as the area was lit only by the light of the moon and the campfire, but they could see the basic outline of the animal. They described it as being huge, maybe 8 feet tall and standing on 2 legs. The animal started coming towards them, which, of course, scared them, and the young man with the gun fired at it several times. The animal stopped and then crossed the road and continued up the canyon on the other side of the road, making a lot of noise as it crashed through the brush. I could not see much during the night, so I returned the next day to examine the area in daylight. I found where the animal had walked up out of the canyon and saw several areas where it had stepped into the unconsolidated rocky hillside of rock and shale and made impressions, but none sufficient to identify any characteristic. Several trees of 2 to 3 inch diameter were pushed over in the direction the animal traveled uphill. The distance between the footsteps was at least 4 feet, and that was on a steep uphill walk. I did not find any evidence of the animal being hurt by the gunshots, as there was no blood or fur found. I tracked the animal uphill for several hundred yards and then lost the trail in a rocky area. I made a report of this incident, and it should be on file. It should be noted that these young men were intelligent college students on a study project, and when I interviewed them, they were extremely scared by the incident, and from my experience, I feel they were telling the truth. There was no other motive I could determine why they would make up this story and then call the police. This incident was never made public. So first off, I feel if you get law enforcement involved, you're probably not joking around. If you're gonna prank call someone, I don't think you're gonna call like a sheriff or the police or whatever, you know? These are geology students. I obviously don't know what these people were like in real life, but I don't feel like geology students are the kind of people that would make up a story like this and call the police as a joke. Like, who knows why they would actually do this other than it being a real event that happened, and that's what I feel it was. I guess it is possible, because it happened in the darkness, there was only moonlight, it is possible that it was a bear standing on its hind legs. They couldn't really see any fine details, and a bear that stands on its hind legs can be pretty tall, certainly can be 8 feet tall and even taller, so that isn't out of the question. The weird thing is that this guy fired his rifle at this creature. I don't know what kind of rifle it was. It doesn't say. If this was a hunting rifle or some sort of high-powered rifle, and it was hitting a physical being, it would certainly penetrate it and go through and leave blood and some sort of sign that you could track into the woods. But in this case, there was no blood, so I wonder what kind of rifle it was. Was it a 22? Because I feel like if it was a 22, there's a chance that you might not see the blood. So who knows? And then we can really go crazy and get into, it maybe not being a physical being. We can get into the supernatural side of things, or the paranormal side of things, or whatever you want to call it. Bigfoot being an interdimensional whatever, which is, not abnormal in the Bigfoot world. When you hear stories like the Ape Canyon incident, these creatures were shot at. One of the creatures was shot at multiple times, and there wasn't really any sign of them being wounded. One of the creatures apparently fell off a cliff but was never seen again. And while they were, attacking the cabin, these miners that were inside of the cabin, were firing their guns through the walls, and it was just absolute chaos. But there was never any sign of these creatures actually being hit. So is that the same as what's going on here? Who knows? We'll never know for sure. That's just how it is. These cases are old. 1977, Ape Canyon happened back in the 1920s. There was, the only thing left behind were tracks and like kind of a trail of broken foliage that this deputy sheriff could follow for a little ways. There isn't any good description of the tracks either. It just says, that there were impressions, but you couldn't make out any like definitive characteristics, which is also strange. And that could just be based on like what the ground is actually made of. Depending on what the ground is like, it might not leave a defined impression of like a giant humanoid foot. But I think in this case, we will never be able to say for certain that it was a Bigfoot. I think there is a really good chance that this was a bear. And, that this guy either was using a very low caliber rifle, like a 22, or because it was in the dark and, he was excited, all these guys were scared. He just missed, he just didn't hit his target. When you're in a situation like that, when you don't know what's going on and it's absolute chaos and you're scared, the odds of you actually hitting your target in the dark are extremely low. So the other thing that's weird though is that when you think about an animal being shot at, like the noise of the rifle, you'd think would scare away most wildlife. The way this creature reacts when it gets shot at is very bizarre. It doesn't just take off and run away like you would expect. You would probably expect a bear to take off into the bush too, if you're firing a rifle at it. If it wasn't in like attack mode, or if it wasn't charging you. If a bear was just minding its own business and you shot at it, you imagine it would take off into the bush and try and get away from you. But this thing has like a weird, relaxed, like leisurely way about it. It just kind of turns and walks off into the bush. It doesn't run away, so that's very odd. So I don't know, it's hard to say. There's a lot of things in the story that would suggest it could be a Bigfoot, and there's other things that would suggest, it could be a misidentified bear. It's just really weird. It's weird. These are intelligent students, geology students. You'd think it would have to be something crazy that went on for them to actually call the police, to have them come out at night, to see what was going on. So it must have been something. It must have been something crazy. Even if that it was a bear and you shot at a bear, you should report that to authorities. But these people, it doesn't seem like they believed it was a bear. They saw something 8 feet tall and standing on 2 legs, and it was coming towards them. So I don't know, a very weird one. I want to know what you guys think about it down in the comments below. Do you think this is a Bigfoot? Do you think it's an interdimensional Bigfoot? Do you think it's a bear? I want to hear what you guys think. Thanks for watching this video, guys. We'll see you next time on Mountain Beast Mysteries.